Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Francisco Cantu and I am back. I had not done the English Facebook and YouTube live streams in a couple of weeks. I remember a few weeks ago I was back in North Carolina where I went to school for a buddy's wedding. And then before that I was traveling. I went to Nevada. So I've been traveling around a lot. So I haven't been able to join you on the Facebook and YouTube English lives, but I am happy to be back. Ready to share another hopefully insightful presentation for all y'all. So I'm gonna get started in a few minutes. I know I started right at 7, but I want to make sure to give people more time to join. So while we wait for more people to join the live stream, you can go ahead and let me know in the chat if this is the first time that you have joined for one of the Facebook and YouTube live streams, or if you have been watching us before. Okay, so that helps me not only engage, and again, it promotes the video, but also helps me get an idea of the type of examples that I should be kind of presenting in case I don't want to sound repetitive, or if it's all new people, I can go ahead and share some of the insights or some of the nuggets of information that I've shared in the past. All right, so let me know in the comments. I'll be able to share your comment in the screen once you start doing so. And just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what we will be discussing today, basically, I'm going to break down the 4 sources of money that a family has to pay for college. Okay, so I'm going to be explaining each one of them and what you need to do to qualify. Okay, so that's the topic of today's presentation. But before I get started, I want to give you all a reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us grow. And if you are a parent or a student who is looking for information about the college application process and you subscribe, then that informs the algorithm that it should present our content to people who are in a similar situation. It helps us grow. It helps people find content that is relevant to them. And overall, it's a win-win for everyone if you help us out with that. Subscribe. And also, if you want to share, if you want to follow us on social media, our handles are at bestcollegeaidUSA. All right, so you can do that across YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Okay, so it is now 7:03. Been live for a few minutes. I'm still gonna give it just a few more seconds for people to join, but I do want to take advantage of this opportunity and let any Best College Aid members know that if you're watching this, if you log inside your membership, you're gonna see some updated content, the CSS profile. And again, I'm gonna get more into the nitty-gritty of the forms and what they mean, but I want to take an opportunity to tell the Best College Aid members who are also on this live stream that we updated that form so that, or that lesson on how to fill out the CSS profile so that you can go ahead and watch it. If you have not already done so, you should have already filled out the CSS profile. Okay, so I'm going to get more in depth on that later on, but I just wanted to give you all that reminder. And if you are not yet a Best College Aid member, again, just to give you a heads up, we are doing a 50% off special that I'm going to share more information about in the tail end of this live stream. Just know that we are running that 50% off special that I'll talk about more a little bit later on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with today's presentation. All right, as I already mentioned, today's topic is the 4 types of funding or financial aid and scholarships available for college. So just so that we're all on the same page, it might seem a little bit basic to a lot of you, but for those of you who are new to the world of college admissions and more importantly, college financing, whenever your student goes to college, along with their acceptance letter, if they're going to be enrolling in the following semester or the following school year, they are going to receive a financial aid award package, and it's going to be a letter that is basically going to have 2 columns. It's going to have the cost of going to college divided between billable and non-billable expenses. So basically what the university is going to charge you for things like the cost of tuition, or if you're going to be living on campus, the housing costs, or if you're going to get a meal plan, those billable expenses. But also there are non-billable expenses, so things that the student still has to pay for, but that nobody's going to swipe and charge their credit card for right away. So that is like the cost of traveling or books. You're going to see in your financial award package that they are divided between the things that the university will charge you for and the estimated costs of things like, again, traveling, books, all that stuff that technically it's still up in the air because you don't know how much you're going to have to specifically pay for all of the textbooks for your freshman year class. But the university still wants you to keep in mind that there are those expenses that are going to be associated with, again, books, traveling, things like that. So billable, non-billable expenses are going to be on one side. And then on the other side, you are going to get the funding or the sources of money that you have to pay for college. And as we will see later on, actually, I'll just go ahead and show you right now. There are four main types of money that you could get for college, and it comes from different sources. There is federal aid and scholarships that comes from the federal U.S. government. There are state scholarships, so every state will have their own programs, their own sorts of policies also to become eligible to receive money from those programs. So that's for the state aid, and typically, again, I'm going to elaborate on each of these more, but you are going to have to become eligible, whether it's through merit, whether it is through having lived at that state a minimum of set amount of years. So there are stipulations for each state that makes you eligible for that amount of money. And then after federal and state aid, there is institutional aid that comes directly from the universities and colleges that you'll be attending. And finally, there are private scholarships that come from private entities. Okay, so I want to elaborate more on each of them later on. And I'm going to get started with some context over the last few decades. So what I'm sharing right now is basically a bar graph that shares from 2001, 2002, all of the money that has been disbursed or that has given out to students in financial aid and scholarships since 2001, and it is broken down by each of the four sources of funding that I just talked about. So again, there is money that comes from the state, and that is represented by the light blue section of the graph of the bar graph. There are private scholarships that is represented by the dark blue section of the bar graph. Then the light tan color is institutional money coming from the universities, and the orange is federal money that comes from the United States government. So as you can see, there's been a little bit of a fluctuation on what percentage comes from what amount of money, but for the most part, especially since 2010, it's been growing more and more so. We can see that, for example, if we take the 2021-2022 school year cycle, you'll see that the least amount of money came from state scholarships. And that makes sense. You know, people go out of state, or even if they stay in state, they might not be eligible for state-sponsored awards. That was 9% of all of the money that was given out last year in the shape of scholarships and grants. 9% of the $140 billion that were given out. So again, that was only 9%. But then if you look at the private scholarships that came from private entities, you know, your corporations, your charities, your individuals that have set up a fund to help people pay for college, that was 12% of all the money that was given out to students, right? That makes a little bit more sense. Again, there are lots of scholarships out there, and when people think about applying for scholarships, they think of private scholarships, so it makes sense that it's a little bit more than your state awards. Then 26% of the amount of money that was given out to students came from the federal government. That's usually tied related or closely related to the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. But what is the most noteworthy statistic is that, especially since 2010 and more so every year after that, around 53%, so over half of all the money that was given out to students last year to pay for their college education came from the institutions that the student attended, right? So that is also taken into consideration students who did not apply to generous schools, who didn't think this was an important kind of qualifier or filter for making a college list. So even including those students that didn't get institutional aid, over half of the money given out to students last year came from the institution, meaning that if you are trying to pay for college, it is in your best interest as far as cost benefit and what it takes into putting in the work versus getting the results. Front load the research as to what schools give out institutional awards, because if you do so, you're going to be applying to generous institutions that give out a lot of awards or satisfy a great percentage of demonstrated financial need, and you are going to be well afforded. The best college age students average per se of institutional awards, it's around 80% of all the money that they received come from the schools themselves. Okay, so it is way higher than the national average. And I'm sharing with you this right now so that hopefully you understand the value or the importance of strategically applying to generous schools, okay? So now that we know that, let's dive deep into each of the different sources of funding, okay? So first, let's further elaborate on institutional awards. Well, as I mentioned earlier, they're awarded by the colleges and universities that the student will attend. Last year, it was approximately $74 billion. And what's important to note is that this money comes for both need and merit-based awards, right? So a lot of people say, oh, I'm not going to fill out the FAFSA. You know, my family makes too much money to receive anything for the FAFSA, or I'm not going to fill out the CSS profile, or a lot of families don't even know that they have to fill out the FAFSA and the CSS profile for some schools that require the CSS profile in order to receive institutional awards. So then they get their financial award package and they see the two columns, billable and non-billable expenses, and what they're being offered. They see they're not being offered anything, so they're like, oh, college is so expensive, which it is. College is very expensive, but because they didn't make themselves eligible for institutional awards, it's extra expensive, right? So the main thing that I want to make sure that we're all on the same page on about is that whatever is required, whether it is the CSS profile, which around 400 institutions require it, and you can go to the College Board's website or just Google CSS profile participating schools, and you're going to get a list of the 400 institutions. So whether it's that and the FAFSA, or whether it's just the FAFSA, it is in your best interest to just go ahead and fill out the form. It takes, if you really struggle with gathering all the documentation and you struggle with identifying the line that you have to put in from your I don't know, 1090 or your W-2s or whatever it is, when you're filling out the form that you're struggling on about, it's still going to take you tops 1, 2, 3 days. Again, and that's assuming that you're really, really struggling, which you shouldn't. It realistically should take you like an hour. Especially if you're a Best College Aid member, you just follow a tutorial and you finish it like that. But anyways, as far as cost benefit, it takes very little work to fill out these forms. And the potential rewards are, again, both for merit and for need. So to summarize this, it's important to make a list of generous institutions. You can find out if an institution is generous or what percentage of financial aid they meet by using sites like the College Board search engine tool, like the university's common data set. You can go to the university's website and you can start filtering out schools that are not generous. Then once you have that list, just make yourself eligible by filling out the necessary forms and documentation, whether it's a FAFSA, the CSS profile, or your school might have their own particular and specific form, or on top of those forms, they might ask for a copy of your tax returns but signed, okay? Whatever the case might be, make yourself eligible to institutional aid or for institutional aid. Make sure that you're doing so for schools that will actually give you institutional aid, okay? Simple enough? All right, let's move on to the next type of scholarships, and that is federal aid. Now, for institutional awards, I only talked about scholarships and grants. For federal aid, I'm going to include other type of vehicles to finance your education. So, yes, scholarships, yes, grants. There's the Pell Grant, there's all that stuff. But there are also federal loans or work-study programs that is money that is being offered to you. And because it's at the federal level, there are a couple of benefits that I'm going to discuss later on, okay? So last year it was around $123 billion, that was disbursed to around 13 million students. And the money that gets given out to the federal government or unlocked through FAFSA can also be awarded for both need and merit, okay? So I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on loans and work-study programs. So again, scholarship is pretty simple. You have certain eligibility requirements to whether it's based on necessity. Your family makes less than X amount of money. That gets calculated after filling out the FAFSA. This year, they changed the form. So they're going to be calculating for something called the Student Aid Index, the SAI. And again, that is going to give the federal government a good picture of your financial foundation or your family's financial makeup. And then you're going to see if you're eligible to scholarships or not. But beyond that, you can also qualify for loans that are set up in a way that has better or more favorable conditions than private loans in terms of lower interest rates or they might be eligible for an income-driven repayment program. I know that the Joe Biden administration has been rolling out a lot of new payback methods. The last one is called the SAVE plan, and it's all like income-driven, and it's meant to make more students eligible to pay lesser amounts, and after a certain amount of money, it can be forgiven. So again, it all comes from the fact that a lot of these loans were taken out from federal sources, so federal loans that are more favorable than those private loans, and you do not have to, or interest does not begin to accrue while you're at school, whereas some private loans, apart from having higher interest rates, might start accruing interest while you're still at school, and you might have to pay back even while you're at school rather than waiting until some deferment period or some grace period. So again, if you are in a position, which again, the whole goal of these presentations and the best college aid is that you make enough scholarships or you earn enough money from the institutions, private scholarships, the state aid that you qualify for, that you get enough money from there that you don't have to take out loans. But if you are in a position in which you have to take out loans, it's better to have federal better interest or better conditioned loans than having more predatory loans to take out, okay? And then the other type of vehicle that gets unlocked through federal aid is work study. And work study is exactly what it sounds like. It is earned money that becomes accessible to the students by enrolling in a university's work study and program, in which, whether it's through the university's aquatic department being a lifeguard, or through the libraries, or through a lab, or through whatever campus employment that is also affiliated or works related to work study, the student would get a regular campus job or a regular job working at the university, and they would just, again, get money in their pocket to pay for college. And the difference between that and other jobs is that, number one, it comes directly from the university. So a lot of these jobs are more conditioned to be student friendly in terms of the hours that they require students to work. And number two, when a student is, or when families are filling out either the CSS profile or the FAFSA, sometimes money that gets earned through work study is assessed differently than money that is earned otherwise, okay? So again, that is something that gets granted to a student based on necessity and through filling out the FAFSA. And if a student is going to get the same job, but they would have qualified for those jobs through federal aid, so through the work study program versus just applying through it regardless, it's just better to have it under work study. Is going to be the same job, but is going to be treated differently in terms of the earnings, okay? And then that money can be used for the student's expenses while at school, okay? But in order to even become eligible for it, you would need to fill out the FAFSA, okay? And again, the FAFSA this year, one of the particularities of it is that it's opening up on December 1st. They haven't released the exact date, but it's presumed either December 1st or the last of December. Once that official date comes out, we'll announce it, but sometime in December, as opposed to October 1st, as it does every year, okay? So that is federal aid. Next up, we have private scholarships. Private scholarships is what most people think of whenever they hear the word scholarship. So it is through businesses, corporations, nonprofits, people, charities that are sponsoring a sort of money, a sort of award that gets given out to students based on whatever criteria their organization sets up before releasing the money or the funds. So in most cases, it'll be fill out an essay, send your transcripts, talk about this experience, go through a round of interviews. And again, there's a lot of money out there from organizations or private entities that sponsor these scholarships. You can become eligible for it as early as 6th grade, although the amount of scholarships that are available for people in middle school and 9th and 10th grade is a little bit lower. It usually tends to peak in 11th and 12th grade, and then in college, there's like a stable amount of scholarships you can continue to apply for. But one of the big misconceptions here is that you can only apply for private scholarships while you're a senior in high school. That is typically when students, they get off the high of applying for colleges and spending so much time after school filling out essays and researching about an institution, that once January comes around and they still are riding that wave, they say, I'm going to apply for private scholarships. But then once they get accepted to college, they forget about it and they stop. without considering the fact that you can continue to apply looking for and earning private scholarships after college. And they are given out for a multitude of reasons. They can be given out based on necessity, based on merit. They can be artistic scholarships. They could be scholarships that you become eligible for based on having above a certain GPA or above a certain SAT or ACT score. So the criteria that makes you eligible for private scholarships depends on the private scholarships, and they set their own policies and regulations because, again, they're sponsored by private entities who have the complete freedom to do whatever they so choose. All right. So that is it for private scholarships. And then the last sort of financing vehicle for college or source of funding for college is state scholarships. As I mentioned earlier, every state sets their own policies. There's around $11.2 billion every year for private scholarships, for state scholarships. And the important thing here is just to look at your own state and what their specific criteria is. It's not like the FAFSA or the CSS profile where you just fill out a form and you're done. There are requirements that you should be aware of. Again, so for example, in Florida, we have Bright Futures, California, Cal Grant, New York, the New York Tuition Assistance Program. So depending on the state you're in, Google the name of your state, and then the word state sponsored scholarship. Read up on the eligibility requirements, whether it's above a certain GPA, above a certain SAT or ACT score, whether you need to also have the FAFSA filled out in order to become eligible, or if on top of the FAFSA, you also have to fill out another financial form that is meant to look at your family's finances at a more or in more depth. And whatever those requirements are, just make sure you complete them and then look at the policies, whether you have to have lived in that state for X amount of years, go to college within that state. I mean, those are, I'm speaking mostly of the typical requirements that states will put forward. But the bottom line here is same as with any of the types of scholarships that I've talked about before. You want to make yourself eligible for as many different types of scholarships, regardless of their source, private, federal, institutional, state, as possible. Why? Because when we are looking at your financial aid award form, you are going to see, for example, this is an example of something that was offered to one of our students. You will see what you are being offered, and all of that is going to sum towards paying both the billable and the non-billable expenses. Okay, so that is the bottom line here. Those are the different types of scholarships. I'm going to open up the comment section for any sort of question or check-in, anything that wasn't clear, any particular situation that you're going through that you want to talk about in terms of the college application financing process. You can go ahead and use either the Facebook or YouTube comments to address that. And while I wait for questions to roll in, I do want to remind you all again, if you want to make sure that you're qualifying for all the different sources of money that you could possibly use to pay for college, if you want to learn how to increase your odds of acceptance, if you want to learn from as early as middle school to as late as already in college and you're looking to transfer or you're looking to save costs on college, then you might want to consider joining Best College Aid. We're running a 50% off special because it is college application season, and it's an incentive for people who are or have been thinking about joining Best College Aid to do so now when there is a lot of things that can be done because the whole process is wide open. The first set or batches of applications do not have a submission or deadline of as early as October 15th and 16th. And again, that's just a handful of schools. Most early action and early decisions will come in November, December, January, and then regular decisions on late December, January. So it's an incentive to get people who are on the fence to join now, where there's still a lot that can be done to help, rather than wait until their second semester seniors or have already graduated high school. Or if you're in 11th grade or 10th grade, you wait until you're a senior, and the amount of things that you can do to elevate the level of competitiveness of your college application has passed by. All right. So if you're thinking about it, this is the time to join Best College Aid, 50% off our full paid program. If you are watching on YouTube, you just click the link below this video and you will go to the checkout page with a 50% discount from $9.97 to $4.97 already applied at checkout. All right. So now I'm checking the comments and I don't see any questions. So I'm going to assume that everything was explained perfectly, properly, and you don't have any remaining questions about anything that I discussed today. But yeah, if you want to let me know, or if you want to learn more about the Best College Aid program, what it includes, or about the college application process, go ahead and check the description below this video, and you are going to learn more about Best College Aid. And if not, I will see you all again. Our social media handle is at Best College Aid USA. So tomorrow at 7 p.m. once again, I'll be going live on both Instagram and TikTok, and I'll be doing a live presentation where you can also ask questions there. Again, our schedule on the English channels at Best College Aid USA is Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays we do YouTube and Facebook. Tuesdays we do Instagram and TikTok. All right, so I will see you all either inside the Best College Aid program or in our social media platforms, whether it's tomorrow or next week, back again here on YouTube and Facebook. All right. Thank you so much for all of your attention, for all of your engagement, and I will see you all next week. Take care.